Hello, 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 hello. So, the Knuckles TV show is kinda getting a lot of flack right now. People are like, Knuckles deserves better, Wade got too much screen time, it's basically just the Wade show, right? But no, y'all don't get it! The Knuckles TV show has so much going on! I'm not the first person to talk about this, but I am here more specifically to tell you today that there are things that the Knuckles TV show does that make it better than the Sonic movies. Yeah, I hear you gasping. Right behind your screen right now. Well, I'm gonna tell you why. Right now. Talking about the Sonic movie. First one, I mean. As Sonic is presented, most of his character and opinions and whatnot seem to come from his situation. Obviously, Longclaw was killed. He lost his mentor and parental figure and so forth, just like any Disney or, in this case, Paramount character. As such, he has been deprived of many of the joys of life for 10 years. And he's just been completely alone, no one to talk to but himself, and as such, it kind of gives him a few endearing little quirks that he has, like he doesn't have an inside voice, or he talks to himself, and it's all just these cute little things, right? My phone fell, pardon that. And because he has been deprived of these things for so long, he has a much greater appreciation for a lot of the things of life that a lot of people, Tom especially, the Donut Lord, would consider to be quite, mundane or boring and so forth. Just regular living, right? Sonic is passionate, so passionate about just lots of little things about life. He appreciates it in all of its aspects, making him, really relatable. You can see why he likes those things, but it, at the same time, kind of makes him rather enigmatic to Tom, right? I mean, Tom, he's kind of stuck in the mundane. And he wants to see, all the greater stuff that life has to offer, but, no, Sonic just appreciates what's already there. But, not only does Sonic have this, appreciation for everything and making him, relatable. I mean, that's most of what that accomplishes, but it also gives him such a strong sense of morality. He knows, without a doubt, whose side he's on, what he likes, what kind of people he likes to spend time with, and so forth. That hedgehog knows what that hedgehog likes. I mean, this is great and all, but the problem is... who's that? Right? That's a very good and relatable and cute little 15-year-old teenage character, but does that sound like this guy right here? I don't know who that is. That's not the kind of character that Sonic is generally known to be, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that conceptually. But the thing is, for a lot of Sonic's appeal as a character in most Sonic media leading up to the Sonic movies, then he's generally been, most of his main character appeal seems to come from him having a lot of attributes that, his viewers, and especially Tails, can look up to, right? He's got leadership skills, he's, confident, and I mean, interpretations of this do vary between, different Sonic media. You get a much different interpretation in the IDW comics to the Archie comics, Sonic Colors and Sonic X. But Sonic generally, there seems to be a general focus on Sonic being a very role model type character, right? The Sonic movies are kind of the first one to really contradict that. The Sonic movies change this around hugely, giving Sonic all these kid-like attributes and emotional drives at just about every turn you can imagine. Probably in an attempt to make him a lot more endearing, after the ugly Sonic incident, It could be quite possible that he's intended to, character develop to be a little cooler, But if Sonic was intended to have, some character progression into a cooler character, then he clearly did not do so very quickly. You see, in the Sonic movie too, Tails is introduced. If there is any time for Sonic to be more role model-y or older brotherly, then that would definitely be the time to do that, right? In the second Sonic movie, Sonic's character doesn't really change that much. Like, he's still just about as immature as he was in the first movie, he just kind of is the same character laden upon with a lot more responsibility. And since he doesn't really have his traditional maturity, then his interactions with Tails, whose personality, may I add, seems largely unchanged from his regular appearances in the games, Sonic's interactions with Tails seem extremely forced. Oh, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. Really? Tell me one way you can improve my self-esteem. I could dance Uptown Funk. That's on me. I set the bar too low. It was repeated a fair amount in the advertising for the second Sonic movie just how much Tails looks up to Sonic, but I have to wonder, like, why does he exactly? I mean, Sonic is a perfectly fine character as he was in that movie, but, like, he didn't really have any of the maturity or, like, ability to take control of a situation that Tails would really have the emotional need for. Like, a lot of Tails' issue, both in the games and in the second Sonic movie, was, like, his lack of self-esteem and the way that this anxiety of his kind of just gets in the way of him being his normal, brilliant self. And Sonic generally kind of provides him a lot of stability and belief in him and so forth. Just kind of having this confidence and a kind of cool-headedness to kind of bring Tails back to Earth, right? Kind of whip Tails out of his anxiety, funk, whatever thing he has going on. But the thing is, movie Sonic doesn't really have a cool head at all. The fact that they tried to represent Tails' lack of self-esteem, like, through a dance fight in Siberia, with all the Siberian people calling him freaks in their, like, Siberian accent. Not to mention the way Sonic, like, ended up fixing the situation by turning on Uptown Funk and dancing in a much more American, modern style fashion. I don't know. I don't know why that really should have helped Tails out in any respect at all. But that's just the kind of characters that they made for Sonic. Sonic wound up in these, like, really bizarre situations, and he, like, worked around that through, like, his own kind of, like, little kiddish perspective, right? He knows how to have fun, and he knows how to, like, bring that fun to other people, but that's not very helpful to Tails. But then, too, like I mentioned earlier, that it's quite possible that they may have intended for Sonic to character progress into a cooler character, but if that's the case, then why does Tails respect Sonic now? Like, I should think that the respect should be, like, a lot more gradually built up, but no, Tails just kinda is all in for Sonic just right off the get-go before he's even met the guy, right? Yeah, it seems like Sonic isn't really going to be character progressing into, like, anything much more similar to his normal game appearances at all, really, which is kind of a shame, because, I mean, they had a pretty good system in the games, right? Sonic's confidence and cool-headedness made him, like, really good leader material for all the other animal characters. You could, like, see why he was the leader of the group, as opposed to, I don't know, just some kind of side character, right? So then, as far as Sonic's character is concerned, like, I mean, in the original trailers for the Sonic movie, you know, he had some lines in there that didn't really make it into the full movie, that kind of made him seem more like a sarcastic little son of a gun. So basically, it looks like I'm going to have to save your planet. Look at this! I took 9 million steps today! Smells like body spray and an old ham sandwich. You know, I kind of wonder if they, like, purposely removed those lines and, like, replaced them with more, like, cute or endearing ones. No, I'm afraid of the dark! To give Sonic that more, like, endearing presence to better go with his cuter design, right? There definitely seems to be some, like, swagger, coolness, or possibly whininess that they may have had to remove there. Whether keeping this sarcasm would have been better for his aesthetic and his relationship with Tails, I can't really say, but those things don't definitely seem to be very well achieved as it presently stands. But Knuckles, though. Oh boy. Knuckles, at least in my personal opinion, absolutely nails the role model stuff that Sonic, like, traditionally goes for and kind of seems to be lacking. Knuckles' character generally isn't particularly deep, but... with how well they showed off Knuckles' like, role model-ish traits, and like with just how cool and mature he is in the Knuckles TV show, nah. He doesn't have to be deep. He's a boss! This guy is just about the biggest role model I've ever seen. He was even used as a role model quite directly for Wade, as Wade, like, dressed up as Knuckles and acted as him in the rock opera The Flames of Disaster. Wade saw firsthand how Knuckles took both his successes and his failures as, like, motivation to keep going, to keep getting stronger. Wade saw the way that Knuckles achieved both confidence and teachability. And, indeed, as was the entire point of that rock opera, how Knuckles translated his sort of core spirit and, like, inner emotional strength, or heart, as they described it, into raw physical power and prowess. Knuckles and Sonic are both similar in the way that they are extremely steadfast in the things that they know they like. They have complete understandings of their personality, but they're just not sure how to apply it to the situation which they are in. But Knuckles takes that very concept to a whole another level, as he sees and explores how other people react to the way he acts, and how other people have, like, some of the same passions, some of the same drives as Knuckles himself does, as he turns his views and his identity outside of himself and kind of absorbs other people's perspectives like a red sponge. Indeed, Knuckles is surprisingly humble and relatively accepting of differences in perspective. He developed a deep relationship with both Wade and Wade's mom, noticing the things they had in common with him, seeking further information about each, making observations on the ways they deserve respect from him. You also train warriors. Knuckles puts into practice what Sonic only really used as cute character traits, allowing those traits to become aspects of both his awesomeness and his relatability. It kinda seems, in some respects, like what Sonic should have been the entire time. I legitimately couldn't ask for a better main character, nor a better interpretation of a character that I have already known and loved for years. Like, he took a lot of the same concepts as Sonic and just used them in such a cleaner context. Now, okay, there's the characterization of the individual main characters, but both of these shows have a very particular genre, that being like the sort of road trip buddy comedy shindig, right? They each have a buddy who is presumably driving the car. So here's the thing, right? The relationship between Sonic and the Donut Lord, Tom, is kind of separated, with a lot of focus on like how the two characters are very different from each other. Sonic had a lot of respect for Tom, as Tom protected Green Hills as its beloved police officer from a long line of the same. Tom protected the people he cared about as a living, and that's a very concept that Sonic had entirely lost the opportunity to do for himself. Tom, on the other hand, had to learn through Sonic just what it meant for him to achieve his own ambition in actually being like a more practical cop, right? He had to learn through his experience with Sonic just what it meant to really save a life and to have the respect of someone who you aren't really that close with yet. Both characters were very relatable and likable in the way that they perceived the other. Sonic just having all this respect for Tom and Tom just kind of gaining a much new perspective from Sonic. But these perspectives, led to their conversations not really being able to carry much progression or rapport or back and forth really at all, as the characters were only starting to understand each other for the whole movie. Like, the kind of relationship they had, it feels like it should have been, like, developed past and beyond, like, pretty soon after it started, but they were in very early stages of their relationship for about as long as they could make the movie last. Quite unfortunately. Since their progression as buddies was kind of just not really there, then a lot of their conversations weren't really meaningful. They were limited to being like just random little jokes and things. Tom either not really putting up with Sonic's playful nature or being rather long-suffering about it.
Now check this off the old bucket list, huh? Big night for you.
As such, any moments where Tom and Sonic really did seem to be in sync, or like they had very much progression, tended to be largely out of character.
What?
We are not.
No, we're not cute.
We are a couple of loose cannons just living by our own rules.
Resulting in it kind of just looking like more of Tom throwing Sonic a bone, as he had done in other parts of the movie. Generally speaking, Tom didn't seem to know what to do with Sonic regardless of what the writers were trying to communicate there. Knuckles and Wade, on the other hand, their relationship had a lot of focus on the things that they had in common, like buried underneath all of their like differences in demeanor. They were very different when you just look at them for the first time, but then as they learned more about each other, they got to see just how much they really had in common. Both of them found each other interesting, and they asked each other about their life and interests. They learned from each other. They allowed themselves to see what they had in common, as well as like what differences they had that were like advantageous to each other. So, bowling is what makes you feel at home? 9 out of 10 warriors would call that a victory. You know what that feels like, don't you? To be betrayed. A major complaint I had with this show rather frequently is that Wade just had too much screen time. But I can't disagree more. Everything Wade was taking up the screen time with was a reflection of Knuckles' own struggles. All of Wade's character development we ever see was learned straight from Knuckles, who was constantly an inspiration and a powerful friend to Wade. Wade and his family and his quest are all a massive allegory to the passions and trials of Knuckles himself. Honestly, I have never seen two characters more fully connected while still being so very distinct. This is the Sonic movies' character formula that they were kind of trying to achieve in a lot of ways the whole time, pretty much in its perfected and completed form. How about that power, huh? Everybody's trying to steal Sonic and Knuckles' power, maybe Tails is worth stealing as well. This is clearly a very important aspect of the movies, but then there comes a comparison. So, unfortunately, the second Sonic movie was kind of a train wreck as far as representing Sonic's power went, right? Almost everything that Sonic used his power for in the second movie was kind of some attempt at being, like, weirdly offensively present. He was almost always trying to beat Knuckles at his own game whenever the two would clash, and, as you can understand, good luck trying to do that. Do I look like I need your power? Sonic didn't do a very good job in his own element either in the second movie, with his attempt to run across the sea while being very cool in concept and started out very cool. It didn't really succeed in, well, not only did he fail, he didn't really fail gracefully. dodging of Knuckles' super fast punches while they were fighting not really working out too well for him either. Why don't you stand still and die with honor? Honor! And Sonic's admittedly rather clever plan of using himself as a distraction for Robotnik not really going well either. He almost died in that process because he literally couldn't outrun a collapsing bridge. You are the fastest thing alive, right? Tell me so. Please. Tell me so. You're the fastest thing alive! Sonic and Knuckles' like really climactic fight that was like super led up to and hyped up ultimately didn't last very long, and for very logical reasons, Sonic was just not doing a very good job. The Knuckles show had action sequences that were absolutely top-notch, doing an excellent job of showing Knuckles fighting a really challenging fight multiple times without either side really dominating or having any particular advantage over the other. In Knuckles' fights with the GUN agents, they were quite evenly matched. The X-Agents were very much playing Knuckles' game rather like Sonic was, but they were really good at it. Both sides were exuding massive amounts of power, showing just these spectacles of chaos energy flying all over the place, and using various clever little tactics to get an edge. Knuckles pulling off the one guy's glove to remove his advantage, Agent Willoughby using a broken rifle as a short-range weapon, Knuckles using a golden bowling ball as a mirror to see what's happening behind him, and then using that same ball as a weapon. Decoys were put into play, rings were put into play, there was lots of teamwork going on. These action sequences had in Knuckles were absolutely jam-packed. Knuckles was in his element all the way, and it absolutely worked. It doesn't matter if the question was of raw strength, strategy, or sometimes leverage even. Knuckles was really good at it, but still faced great challenges that were absolutely satisfying to watch, like regardless of whether he won or lost. Knuckles and Sonic have extremely different specialties, and Sonic's specialty was unfortunately not all that well presented. I'm kind of sad for the guy. Are you okay, little bud? Are you not as fast as you'd like? Do you need a hug? Now, for my favorite part, the themes. The theme of the first and second Sonic movie was in, like, friendship and family, respectively. These were things that Sonic had been stripped of when he was younger, and he was absolutely desperate to achieve. That was a lot of his character in the first movie, and a need that he still had in the second one, even if a lot of that stuff had been resolved in the first. But unfortunately, the way these themes were presented was rather forced, and kinda hard to pick out in both movies. Like I mentioned, Sonic and Tom's relationship, the theme there was friendship, but their relationship didn't have a very clear progression, and while they very much were friends at the end, the way that they got there was remarkably unclear. Indeed, Tom becoming more of a parental figure for Sonic in the second movie was actually pretty natural for the way that Tom's character worked, but only if you completely ignore the writer's attempts to show progress in their relationship in the first movie. That little alien knew more about being human than you ever will. As it stood, the kind of donut dad shindig they had going on in the second movie was kind of just awkward, seeming rather like Tom had backslid several steps in his character progression, and the movie even kind of acknowledged this. You're supposed to be my friend. Stop trying to be my dad. Sonic's relationships with Tails and Knuckles, too, didn't really seem conducive to either of these themes, with the one with Tails being rather forced, as I mentioned earlier, and the one with Knuckles being more like a perfectly solid alliance. These both didn't seem like a natural shift into friendship at all, let alone family, as the brotherly relationship they tried to present at the end of the second movie. They were so close! Indeed, the stress put on both friendship and family was kind of half-baked in both movies, leading to little more than cute interactions with when Sonic as a character, let alone the audience, needed so much more. Sprinkles, this is your new destiny. But then, the theme of the story told in the Knuckles show Oh my gosh. It was one of feeling at home, and Echidna Warrior has no home. Of, again, family, and to top it all off, of tradition. These were presented thoroughly. Knuckles' entire character progression was focused in linking these things together, finding how these three concepts that he wasn't even putting together at first, seeing how they connect, and finding how he can be content on Earth by merit of these things just by themselves. And that progression into finding these things, finding those meanings, is visible. The inclusion of Wade's family and their Jewish and family traditions was an excellent way to carry these themes forward, staying focused on the many things that defined them as people. How these people, like Knuckles, focused on those who came before them, and kept in mind how their past experiences and the experiences of their ancestors led them to who they are today. This was a family struggling to stay together, but still holding on to their old traditions, honoring their ancestors, staying focused on the many things that defined them. Knuckles related to them so hard, and it provided a much deeper view into Knuckles' perspective. I mean, like Mother Whipple said, he's basically Jewish. I mean, I know she said that as a joke, but that is extremely true. That is literally, like writing-wise, why Wade was part Jew to begin with. To allow Knuckles' passions and his past to be covered and represented by Wade in every possible aspect. Wade and his family, like I said, are an allegory for Knuckles and just who he is and what makes him the best! In both movies, the characters were very well suited to their themes. The Knuckles show carried this proactivity for the themes that Sonic, ironically, can't seem to keep up with. In closing, the Knuckles show, to me, feels like kind of the opportunity that the Sonic movies missed. Here, Knuckles as a character is shown for what the fans already love him for, while with Sonic they had to make these weird compromises that compromised a lot of how Sonic interacted with the other characters and where his appeal came from. Knuckles had a much more deep and poetic relationship with his buddy character in Wade that Sonic unfortunately couldn't really live up to. Knuckles was shown to be a powerful character in a way that Sonic didn't even seem like he was trying. And the Knuckles show had themes and poetry and just flavor that the Sonic movie only seems to aspire to. Like I said, the Knuckles TV show seems to really achieve what the Sonic movies have been trying for this whole time. And I like it for that. Maybe too much screen time was on Wade. Maybe they were trying to save CGI budget by just putting the camera on Wade more. But regardless of who was on the camera, the entire show was about Knuckles. I couldn't really ask for a better Knuckles show, to be honest. I can't really imagine what such a one would look like. I've never seen characters dived in so deep, especially not in Sonic media. But hey, this isn't all the analysis I'm doing. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you know exactly when I get to talk your leaves off again, and be sure to like and comment below how thoroughly you disagree with me. That said, I had to go get a drink of water.